Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today with some Glimmer foiling and Polychromos cards to share with you. These cards feature new foil plates from YANA'S Spellbinders collection, and they are so incredible, and I hope that my cards kind of show you some of the versatility from these new Glimmer plates and ways to incorporate some Polychromos colored pencil coloring with your foiling, something I really love, especially on dark cardstock. We're going to be creating 3 cards today, and I will be using all 4 of the new Glimmer plate sets from this collection for my cards, starting with this dark blue design first. So this card is going to feature a foiled wreath, some additional foiled flowers, and then a foiled sentiment. And we are going to tape the wreath, or pardon me, the circle and part of the foliage that creates the wreath to our dark cardstock. This is the Hero Arts Nautical cardstock. It's a beautiful dark blue. And we are going to be using the Spellbinders foliage border. That's what this is called. And it's got this great wreath builder and then some additional leaves and flowers that you can use with it. So it's kind of probably the base of all of my cards today. I'll be using this kind of wreath design or this border design on 2 of my cards, but I'm going to be using the flowers from this set on all 3. So I am foiling one, or the circle and the foliage, on my background. I'm actually not going to use the coordinating die for this one. I will on my second card, but I want to make this a full wreath. So if you remove that now, you can line up the foliage. And again, I'm going to use a little low tack tape to hold that in place. And I am going to run this through my Glimmer hot foil system again. In fact, I'm going to do this 3 times. So you're going to do it around the perimeter of your circle 3 times. It will leave a small little spot in between kind of where you foil it. If it doesn't bother you, you do not have to do anything or add anything extra. If you want to, you can always take some of those additional leaves or other foliage kind of images and fill in. I'm actually going to do that today. The foil that I'm using for my wreath, in fact, the foil I'm using for the majority of the images here on my card is the Spellbinders matte silver foil. I am a huge fan of this matte silver. In fact, I'm a huge fan of all of the foil. They have a bunch of new foil colors as well. I'm going to be using one of those in my cards today. It's called MOONDUST, and it is gorgeous. But there's lots of new foil, and I highly recommend checking it out if you love lots of different foil options for your foiled cards and other projects. So I am going to foil this one more time. I will tell you that I kind of took my time with this. I wasn't exactly sure. I wanted to make sure it was going to stay put. You will notice I'm using a low tack tape a lot. This is because it's so important that it stays put exactly where you want it when using the Glimmer hot foil machine. So I'm peeling it off. There is my wreath. If there is any overfoiling, I like to just use a little sand eraser to remove that. And I'm really being gentle because anywhere there's foiling, you could rub that off. So I try to use my eraser pretty flat to remove any of that overfoiling. And then here, this is where I am going to add those additional foliage pieces. Remember, when you are taping things down, I was really conscious to keep the tape off of anything I foiled because the tape will remove the foil as well. But look at that one little area where I added an extra leaf or leaves. You don't see that there's a space there. So I'm actually going to do this step 3 times as well to get that completely filled in wreath type image. Another option, if you don't want to try to line it up like I did, you could simply foil that 3 times on different pieces of cardstock, die cut them with the coordinating die and piece them together. You're going to see me do that with the second card. I'm actually only going to use it twice, but you could do it 3 times and then piece those all together. Now comes the fun part of Polychromos on dark cardstock. I love to start with a base of the white Polychromos colored pencil first, and then I'm going to layer on top some greens and blues. Any of those colors that I'm using are listed on the screen here so that you know what I'm using. Also in the coordinating blog post, if you want to skip over to my blog, it is linked below here in the box below the video. I have listed out the colors I've used for each card in that blog post for easy reference. There is not a ton of coloring, especially on the leaf. The majority of the the majority of the coloring is going to be on the florals, but that little touch of green throughout I think is just really super pretty. And you could do any color of foil that you want. I will be incorporating a little polished brass foil as well, just for some additional color into my leaves. That's going to be especially important just to add a little bit of extra color and texture, I think. Now I'm also using YANA'S Sentiments. This is an amazing sentiments collection. It's got 5 different sentiments, I think, yes, in this. And we're going to be using thank you for this card, and I'm going to be using a combination of stamped and embossed sentiments and a foiled and die cut sentiment. So all of these YANA'S sentiments, they have the foil plate and the coordinating die. And I really wanted to just reinforce and bring home that thank you feeling for this. These are all foiled again with the matte silver foil. And I'm going to die cut those with the coordinating die. One little bummer here, and I just didn't foil it again on camera. That thank you actually had shifted, or my paper shifted when I ran it through my die cutting machine. So part of the T got cut off, or is on the edge of the cardstock. So I actually foiled that again. I just wanted to be really transparent here that I did not tape any of these in place. Sometimes they will shift, especially if you're doing tons of them like this, or I didn't get my paper exactly where it needed to go. So I am going to foil that again because I really want the entire sentiment. It's really important because in addition to foiling it and die cutting it, I'm actually going to die cut the sentiment additional times and stack those one on top of another to give it a little bit of dimension in the center of my wreath. Look at those blues on the dark blue cardstock. I'm always amazed at how incredible Polychromos look on dark cardstock. It's one of my very favorite looks. Also, full transparency, I stamped both of these sentiments from the Simon Says Stamp Thankful Flowers set at the top of my card. And the smaller phrase really goes over a lot of the wreath, and I don't think it shows up great. I had hoped that I could just stamp and emboss it and that it was going to look good, and I'm not happy with it at all. I stamped this with a clear embossing ink. I heat embossed with white embossing powder. I have already done all of the work to foil this wreath on my cardstock. I really didn't want to start from scratch. So I did a little problem solving, which when we're crafting, we have to do oftentimes. And what I ended up doing, and I actually really like it because I kind of like the dimension. Here in a little bit, I am going to stamp that smaller phrase on white cardstock using a blue ink, the Lawn Fawn Deep Sea ink. It's a really deep blue. I think it complements the Hero Arts Nautical cardstock beautifully. But I'm going to stamp it with a blue ink, cut it out, or die cut it, pardon me, with a sentiment label die from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to pop that right underneath. And that contrast, first of all, it looks great. And second, because it's almost the opposite of what we have with the more bold sentiment, where it's white on navy. With the smaller phrase, it's navy on white. And I really kind of like that. Plus, it's so much easier to read. I think I would have been really unhappy if I had left it on there the way it was. So I'm going to pop that up with foam adhesive. I've also glued those die cut thank yous, the YANA'S sentiments, one on top of another. Pop that in place, glued my flowers in place, and then I added some Wedgwood Blue Nouveau Crystal drops to finish my card. That panel measures 4 by 5 1/4 inches, leaving that white border. So does this one. However, I'm going to start with a bigger background. One of my most favorite, and I can tell you already is going to be one of my most used foil plates, is the new polka dot strip. Yes, it can be used as a strip, but you can also create an all-over background, which is what we're going to do today. I am going to be foiling this polka dot strip on Hero Art's Mist cardstock using that new MOONDUST foil. This is the new color, brand new for February. Gorgeous, gorgeous foil. There are several blue colors, and I'm always drawn to blue for whatever reason in the Glimmer foil collection. And I'm actually using 3 different ones today. On my next card, I'm going to be using teal and cobalt. So I think they would all look amazing together as well. But this MOONDUST is so pretty. Probably my favorite new color. I really, really love it. What's great about this particular Glimmer plate, so you can use it as a border, that would look amazing, but I want an all-over pattern background. So I'm going to line it up. I'm just eyeballing it, lay it out again, using my tape. I'm reusing my tape actually, and I'm going to go ahead and foil another strip. So let's go ahead and do that. And to cover the entire card front, we're actually going to have to foil it again. I started with a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel of cardstock. We will be trimming it down to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. So it's going to leave that nice white border all the way around the perimeter of this card as well. Then we're just going to line it up one more time and run it through this final time. Make sure your tape does not touch anything you've already foiled, because remember, it can pull up that foil and kind of, it really kind of messes up the whole look. So I'm really, really carefully lining this up. When I flip it over, because this one was tricky because it hangs off the edge. So when I flip it over, I'm just going to make sure that that little kind of crescent of the circle is pretty even all the way down the side of my cardstock. And then I'm going to foil it, remove that, and it looks so amazing. So you actually can get an all-over polka dot background, and it was pretty easy to do. I could see doing this a lot. I love large polka dots. This is a super versatile die plate that can be used with anything. Isn't that MOONDUST foil so pretty? Then I am foiling from the foliage border the wreath shape with the circle. Now this is where I'm going to use the coordinating die. On the last card I did not use the coordinating die, but on this one we are. And I'm going to foil this design twice. On the second one I'm going to use one of YANA'S sentiments, the Best Wishes sentiment, to foil that inside the circle as well. And again, this is all matte silver foil. So the same foil that I used for the majority of my first card I am using here. I just used a different foil for the background. And we're going to get that all heated up, add our cardstock, run that through. So we're going to end up with 2 circle shapes, which is totally fine because they piece together beautifully. And this is where I'm piecing 2 of them together, but you could piece 3 of them together and create that entire wreath that I did for the first card, but make it die cut. It might be a little easier to line up that way as well. So when I was working on how to get the circle, the foliage, and the sentiment lined up, because I want to be transparent. When I first did this, I did not use tape, and it kept shifting. It shifted twice, and I got mad. So I finally wisened up, and I'm using some low-tack tape to tape my foil plates together so that they are not going to go anywhere. And once I have those lined up the way I want them to look, I'm going to lay that down on my Glimmer hot foil system. We will add our matte silver foil, and then we're going to add our Hero Arts Mist cardstock and run this through that way. I should have done that in the first place. I know better, and I want to tell you guys because it is so worth that tiny little extra bit of effort to add the tape, because look how perfect that is. So we'll go ahead and take the coordinating die, run that through our die cutting machine, and we'll have our two pieces. Just like the first card, I am going to go ahead and do a little Polychromos colored pencil coloring. There is not a ton to color right here necessarily, but that little bit of color in the foliage border is so pretty. We'll add even more embellishment with some Nouveau crystal drops in the Caribbean ocean color, just to some of those little dotted areas, which you'll see in a little bit, which add a little bit more depth, dimension, color, all those good things. But the florals are really where we're going to pull in the majority of our color. And the colors of pencils I'm using are again shown on the screen and are listed on my coordinating blog post. So we're going to tape those two circle or foliage border pieces together to create our beautiful little accent, and then we're going to decorate it with some additional foiled and colored pieces, leaves, flowers, all the things. We're going to glue those in place, and we're going to pop up this entire piece on the foiled polka dot background with foam adhesive squares. I really felt like this needed to be popped up a little bit, and I just love how it turned out. Really, really pretty. It makes a gorgeous wedding card. This one reads Best Wishes, and then I'm going to add a little stamped and embossed strip that says To the Happy Couple. That little strip is going to come from a Simon Says stamp set called Tiny Words. One of my very favorites as far as wedding type phrases goes. Best wishes could work for anything. You could put happy birthday under there, happy anniversary, best wishes, get well soon. There are lots of things you could put here other than To the Happy Couple. Just kind of, I know it's only, well, end of February now, so it's only about March, but we're going to quickly approach wedding season, and so I always like to have some wedding cards on hand so I'm not making something last minute, because I'm not super good at making those things last minute. I'm going to add those Nouveau crystal drops in Caribbean Ocean that I was talking about, and those little touches of blue. I'm not sure in video you see it really great, but in real life they really add a nice, beautiful decorative touch to the card. And then we're going to, of course, let that sit and completely dry. I want to make sure whatever I do at the top, I duplicate down at the bottom. And I'm going to add that little stamped and embossed phrase with some foam adhesive right underneath the foiled best wishes. Another tip, if you don't want to mess with trying to line up that best wishes and foil it right in that circle, you can always just die cut that with the coordinating die and pop it into the circle like I did on the first card. So another little tip and idea for you if you're having a hard time getting it lined up or you don't want to mess with the low tack tape. Here's that little phrase, again on white cardstock, and that's really going to tie into the white border because this background is 4 by 5¼ inches, so slightly smaller than A2 size, and it just is going to look really, really pretty when it's all done. And it looks like I maybe missed a little area with my Polychromos, so I'm just going to go in and fix that really quick to finish off my card. For our third and final card share today, I am not going to use the foliage border really, but I am going to use some of the foliage, but we're going to incorporate some of the organic foliage, which is some completely different leaves and sprigs and things with those flowers from the foliage border set, and we'll be using YANA'S sentiments for this as well. This background is going to be the Hero Hues Adriatic cardstock, which I absolutely love. And then we're going to be using another new Spellbinders Glimmer plate collection. These ovals are the Essential Glimmer ovals. They're circles, squares, and rectangles too, and they are my favorite thing ever. You can use them on everything. They're so easy to use. I have a whole bunch of projects coming. I can't wait to share with you where I'm using these. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you get the opportunity and you love foil and you love like nice essential basics, I highly, highly recommend these. So I foiled 2 of the ovals on my Adriatic cardstock with the teal hot foil. So it's a little bit different color than Moondust. It's definitely very, very teal. It's this color I'm using here. And I am going to foil the organic foliage and foliage border elements using both the teal and cobalt foil. So 2 different colors. There's not a huge rhyme or reason. The cobalt adds a beautiful contrast to the teal and then the Adriatic cardstock I'm using. The sentiment I'm using, we're going to be creating a sentiment just like our first card. So I'm going to be foiling Sending My Love with cobalt foil on the Adriatic cardstock. We're going to die cut multiples of that sentiment and stack them one on top of another to give it a little bit more of a substantial look. You could definitely die cut it from a different color cardstock, but I like that from the side when you're looking at it and you see that dimensional sentiment, that it has the same color all the way up. I think it's really, really pretty. We're going to die cut all of these pieces then with the coordinating dies. What I love is there is a coordinating die for each element here. And I'm going to just simply die cut all these. These also colored in with Polychromos colored pencils. I did not do a lot of the coloring for this one on screen. You can find those pencil colors on my blog post. So if you're wondering exactly what I used, you can definitely find that there. I stamped and embossed a sentiment from the Simon Says Stamp Thankful Flowers right in my oval. I kind of planned out where my foliage was going to go at the top and the bottom, where my die cut sentiment was going to go, and then I added this great little phrase underneath that says, "Thank you for loving me when I needed it most." So pretty. Originally, I thought I'd shift that all up a little bit and just do a ton of foliage down below. And as I had laid it out prior to gluing it in place, I really felt like it needed something up top, and I ended up absolutely loving it. This is one of those projects where each card, I was like, this one's my favorite. No, this one's my favorite. I think these foil plates are stunning and amazing. If you are looking to dive into foiling cards, I highly recommend the Spellbinders Glimmer Hot Foil System, their Glimmer plates, all the things. They have got some amazing things coming, some new amazing things out right now. Just so many fun things you can do with these products. And you can definitely incorporate some of your favorite coloring mediums into this too. I love Copics with foiled images, so definitely play around with all of that. Once I have all of my foliage in place, I'm going to finish with some Nouveau Crystal Drops in Sea Breeze. Now I know that this looks colorful when it goes on, but when it dries, and definitely at the photo here at the beginning of the video or at the end, it dries clear. It has a little bit of tint of color to it. You could probably use glossy accents too, but I love the little bit of dimension that it adds and the little dewdrops throughout. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this set of 3 cards featuring Spellbinders Glimmer plates and Polychromos colored pencils. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Spellbinders that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.